You're an old-style liberal. I don't mean old and old. I mean, but you like debate and conversation, and I think that's just awesome. So thank you so much for joining us tonight.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely. And I want to begin with a simple question, Dr. West. Are the president's policies, let's just focus now on his
Cornel West, Candace Owens,
are they
Laura
helping
Ingram in the middle.
African-American community, in your view?
She's a liar, so let's just get right into it.
Now, I think that the statistics certainly look good through a narrow lens, so I give him credit in that regard. But we have to keep in mind that on the one hand, you still have grotesque wealth inequality, you have job insecurity, so many people who are working more than one job. We know many people who have withdrawn from the labor force are not counted.
Now, see, this is from 2019. I probably didn't see this right when it happened, but I will tell you, based on my knowledge of how she gets down, talking about Laura Ingram right there in the middle, she usually will cut off a liberal guest. Anybody on the Democratic side, that's what she does. Especially when they start making really good points. Now, she invited Cornel on, knowing the brother's long-winded, so she may give him a little bit more leeway.
Counted at all. But I think the problem is, though, my dear sister, is that the president has a language that creates an atmosphere that is so xenophobic against black folk, Mexicans, Muslims. He rarely wants to stay in contact with their humanity. So when you look at the statistics,
he talk about the language now.
One thing, but when you create an atmosphere and an ambience of xenophobia, it reinforces the polarization, and therefore many black folk wouldn't even be able to connect the statistics that look good with the language, the atmosphere that feels so bad, and that cold-hearted and mean-spirited.
So in other words, let me listen. Cornel put it perfectly. The numbers don't match up with what's coming out of his mouth. First of all, we need to say that Obama left Trump with a fantastic economy. When Trump was in office for just about 6 or 7 months, he said, we've enjoyed 127 months of job growth. Well, he only was in there for 6 months. So where did the other 121 months of job growth come from? They came under Obama. So he was handed a fantastic economy that was already trending in the direction that it continued to trend in while Trump was in office. He don't care about black people because the numbers just happen to benefit African Americans in terms of the reduction of unemployment. How could he when he's saying all of this bad shit about black and brown people?
It's something that cuts very, very deep in the spirit of people.
Have you met him? Have you met him, Dr. West? Ever met the president?
No, I've never had a conversation with my right-wing brother. I mean, you know, I've called him a gangster and a proto-fascist in terms of separation of power. But he's a human being. He's a human being, and I could, you know.
No, I'm just saying this because look, you and I don't agree a lot, but I actually really like you. I think I just like the fact that you're out there and you're advocating. I have no problem with it, and I wouldn't call you mean-spirited. We disagree, but I think if you actually were with the president, you might find that you could accomplish a lot together and you could do a lot together. I really believe that. He'll work with pretty much anybody.
Okay, so then why won't he call people like this into the Oval Office and have a meeting with them and a conversation about those things that afflict our community, things that we want to get fixed? How come it's only people like Candace Owens on the left side of your screen who's willing to go out and say all kind of bad stuff about black people every time somebody turn the camera on her? Why is it only those people he talks to? Oh, I think you should go sit down and talk to the president. Well, had the president call me. He ain't hard to find.
And that's what I found in my experience. So I'm just throwing that out there, Candace. But there is this tonality issue that people seize on with the president. And they always go back to Charlottesville. They always go back to this S-hole countries. Those are the two things that really
shithole countries. He called all those African countries shithole countries.
Probably, for some, just wipe out any other accomplishment. Your reaction?
Well, look, I think the president is doing something different. Definitely his tone is different because he tells the truth and he doesn't pander to black America. He hasn't offered us hot sauce. He's offered us jobs. That makes many people uncomfortable.
When you say he's offered us jobs, what job did Trump offer black people?
Because they're from an era where race hustling is a business. They're used to telling.
So race hustling is when black people stand up and advocate for their rights, or when somebody like a Cornel West, or Michael Eric Dyson, or anybody else who would speak out against injustice against black people decide to speak out. That's what she calls race hustling.
Black Americans at their victims, writing books about victimhood, and that is no longer selling in America. And I just wanted to comment back on saying that xenophobia is something that black Americans are afraid of. Xenophobia means that you have a fear, Mr. West, of foreigners. Black Americans are not foreigners in this country. We are a piece of the American dream. We've earned a piece of this American dream, and we're getting...
I think xenophobia really refers to fear of the other. Not sure specifically. You could look that up, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it means fear of the other. So anything that's different from me is what I fear or hate, and that's xenophobia.
I'm tired of people telling us that we are somehow separate of it. I mean, that's really what I have to say. We're doing tremendous under this presidency. There is no candidate that is offering anything on the left to counter what Trump has offered. They're just offering more rhetoric, more fear-mongering, and unfortunately, time is up on this narrative. We are ready to move on and embrace our futures.
Oh, Dr. West, I want to get...
what the
Dr.
fuck does that mean?
If I can come straight, I mean, first, xenophobia in the generic sense means the fear of other.
Okay.
And black folk have been othered, enslaved, Jim Crow, Jane Crow, and so forth. So if you want to, the narrow understanding is just foreigner, but it's the other. Those who have been otherized, those who have been marginalized in this sense. But think of when you call my dear sister Maxine Waters low IQ.
She does have a low IQ.
That's vicious.
Now, low IQ, Trump calls an older African-American woman, somebody who served their community, continues to get reelected over and over and over again, somebody respected out there in California, calls her low IQ, sitting congresswoman, and Candace Owens, African-American woman, immediately, knee-jerk reaction, yes, she is low IQ. Anything to agree with Donald Trump. He said Maxine Waters is low IQ. She's low IQ.
That's a fact.
You said what?
That is a fact. If she took an IQ exam, you would find out that Maxine Waters had a very low IQ. And I will push that challenge. It may not be nice, but it is truth.
Okay.
When he calls Brother Collin a son of a bitch, you see, this kind of language is ridiculous.
I have never used that language.
Not you.
No, I'm talking about the president. I'm not talking about you, my sister. I'm talking about
And let him finish.
The president called
Don't
Brother
cut him
Collin a son
off.
of a bitch.
Okay, but I
think that's a fact.
Yeah,
I think that's a fact.
No. Let him finish his fucking statement.
It's on both sides. I mean, it's on
both sides.
Traitor.
Both sides is what Republicans say when they get caught in some shit that they can't get out of. Now, if it's a way for them to maneuver out of some shit, they'll try every trick in the book, no matter how ridiculous it is, to wiggle out of that shit. When they're stuck, they'll be like, well, both sides. So that's called both-siderism, is what you're seeing right now.
I mean, so we can play that game all night long, but I do want to get this out. I want to get to this. The prevailing wisdom, I think Dr. West, highlighted this, is that race relations have deteriorated almost under this president. That's the thought. And that Obama was
true.
The great racial healer. Yet, in a new study by a pair of sociologists at UPenn, this is not some conservative outlet, they found that, quote, anti-black prejudice declined by a statistically insignificant degree between 2012 and 2016. But then after 2016, it took a sharp dive. There was also a general fall in anti-Hispanic.
Now, see, what I would do normally right now when I'm watching this on the couch is what I would do is I would go find out who Spectator USA is. I find out who owns them, who's on the board, who their reporters are. I would look at other stuff that they have put out and see what angle they're coming from. And I actually went and read the article, and it actually makes the case that racism increased under Obama because racists were upset that a black man was in the White House, not pointing to any policies or anything Obama said that would stoke racial hatred or increase racism. So it blows a hole in her theory. That's what she does for a living. Now let's get back to my fly-ass expose. Other shit that they said was ridiculous before I take this study as the gospel, right? So is that after 2016, it took a sharp dive, meaning hatred against black and brown people. There was also a general fall in anti-Hispanic prejudice. Listen, I'm black. Who all got killed when Trump was in office? George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, I think Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor. lots and lots of people. If you've been around any Trump supporters and you're black, you know what the atmosphere has been like since 2016. So,
prejudice too. So, Professor West, to what do you attribute these findings? So, prejudice is on the downswing, not on the upswing, at least in these first few years of Trump.
lies.
Well, based on this particular study, I'd have to examine how they gather their evidence and so forth.
See what I'm
But
saying, though?
Anti-Jewish attacks, anti-Muslim attacks, anti-Mexican attacks, and not just anti-black attacks, but also the police department,
Yeah.
militarizing
Yeah.
the police department,
Yeah.
the withdrawal of the investigations when police do, in fact, shoot fellow citizens, whatever color they are, but disproportionately chocolate,
But that was
disproportionately
happening
black
under Obama.
and brown.
Right, that
Oh,
was happening
absolutely.
under Obama, like
That's
Ferguson
true.
and all
That's
that
true.
stuff, right?
That's
not
true.
a fact.
Yeah, there was
I'm
bad
talking
cops when
about
Obama was president too. Yes.
Thanks, Captain Obvious.
Yeah,
I'm talking about continuities.
right. I do want to share this. This was a moment that I think, again, going back to what Candace has worked on and spoken about, and what Dr. West.
What she's about to do right now is set up some shit. Now, I haven't, again, I don't know if I ever saw this when it originally aired, 2019. I just pulled this one up to illustrate what goes on Fox News. What I think is probably about to happen here is she about to bring up a clip, and if she asks Cornel a question, the clip will be some kind of fucked up shit that some Democrat then says somewhere, and then she'll ask Cornel to answer for it, or it'll be a real great setup for Candace, something ridiculous that a Democrat said that they can't wiggle out of, and then she'll hand it on a plate to Candace, but then they will make that the overarching theme of what's wrong with the Democrat Party, whatever isolated thing she's about to show right now.
West, I think you two could actually be happy about together. Happened at the White House, I think it was last month, and it was an event commemorating the First Step Act. Let's watch.
And I really thank you for signing that bill. When y'all passed this, I could have fell through the floor.
I'm an example of a woman who has been given a second chance in life.
And it's an experience that I never forget.
2 months ago, I was in a prison cell.
Now, wait a minute. What am I supposed to say if a guy get me out of jail and I was doing 25? If I still have 15 left on my sentence? And this guy get me out? What am I supposed to say? Second of all, you almost would feel like you kind of got to go to the White House. You've been in jail for like 10, 15 years. And they say, yo, Trump is about to let you out. We're going to take you over to the White House so you can get on this microphone real quick. What you going to say? Oh, no, I ain't going to. Well, fuck it. You going to sit in the cell then. I mean, come on, man. Don't use this.
And I'm in the White House. Let's continue to make America great again.
Now, Dr. West, I mean, I don't think they were feeling xenophobia or mean-spiritedness. I think they actually found a president who was willing to work with people who really didn't even like him and didn't think he was probably going to accomplish much. And it got almost no coverage. I think we played it on our show, maybe a few other places.
Some black people got let out of prison. How many did Obama let out? Thousands.
No, I think that's a very important attempt to zero in on this vicious policy in the last 40 years of mass incarceration,
Yeah.
punitive attitudes toward those engaged in various kinds of crimes. I've been blessed to teach in prisons for 37 years. The Raw Way to Step program of just in Norfolk. It's something that has an impact on the ground, and I'd give the president credit for that. It's not as if he has nothing to offer. It's just that the dominant orientation is still tied to what I'm critical of both parties. Because identity politics for me is milquetoast, neoliberal politics that don't talk about corporate power, don't talk about poverty, don't talk about militarism. But the Republicans still strike me as so cold-hearted, mean-spirited, and they're still tied to corporate power and Wall Street and won't hit poverty head-on.
Yeah.
When it comes to prison, when it comes to statistics,
no, don't cut him.
I give
See?
the president credit
See?
for that, but it's still small relative to what I'm looking for. I see it in neither both parties other than Brother Bernie Sanders, but that's another dialogue, as you know.
Bernie Sanders.
Well,
we won't go into that right now.
No, we won't go to that. But I have to go back to this idea of race relations under Obama, which I almost fell out of my chair in the CNN story that came out in October of 2016. They got worse. 54% of Americans said they got worse. Only
Yeah, because
16%
everybody,
said they
all
got
these
better.
white folks was mad that
This was at
Obama
the
was
end of the Obama
president.
administration. So as Cornel West said, you know, you had Ferguson, you had
And you
Freddie
had
Gray in
Trump
Baltimore, you had all this
saying
stuff
that he wasn't even
bursting
born
out
here.
on the streets of America with the first African-American president in the White House, and that healing didn't seem to take place.
Right. Look,
Is that
that's
Obama's
when I was
fault?
on the left. So when Barack Obama first went into office, I was a liberal, and I changed my mind due to exactly what you're saying. He drove this nation apart. President Trump is bringing this nation together because what he is talking about is patriotism. Patriotism knows no sense.
First of all, from what I know about her, and if I'm wrong, correct me, but she was a liberal at the time when Obama was president. At some point during school, high school, college, or something, some white people came at her with some racist shit. She had a grievance. That shit was public, whatever. At a certain point, she realized that it was going to be more profitable for her to be an African American on the right side of the aisle, because if you can go out there and spew anti-black rhetoric as a black person, you could be the mouthpiece for racists, and that can get you fame, it can get you fortune, and that's the train that she's ridden to the top, so to speak. So no, she didn't change her orientation or affiliation from liberal to conservative based on the fact that Obama divided the country along racial lines. She changed because she wasn't getting no traction telling the truth about white racism. So she decided the bag was more important than her integrity. Yet she sits in front of you and lies.
Sex, it knows no color, it knows no creed. The liberal media can ignore all the work that he's doing in Black America all they want. Every statistic in the world shows you right now that black support for Donald Trump
And we after the election right now. Just keep that in mind.
has doubled, and that is meaningful. And I'm telling you that by 2020, he is going to be the first president to crack the black vote to the detriment of the Democrats.
Hey, Professor West.
Now, that didn't happen. He did increase black male support for the Republican candidate. That is true. But overwhelmingly, African Americans went for the Democratic nominee, which was Joe Biden.
I want to. Do you still do work in prisons? Do you still do it?
Absolutely.
Can I come with you? Can I come with you on one of your
You can come
one of your visits?
anytime you like. We're going to keep track of the humanity and rich imagination.
First of all, that's a lie. She's never going to go inside a prison with Cornel West. Never going to happen. Don't know if she's ever been inside a prison in her fucking life. And when we talk about all of these great things that they say that President Trump did for African American people, it's after the election right now. Has he mentioned anything about black people since November 3rd? Has he said anything about, I'm going to continue my fight to make sure African Americans are free from prison?
No. Mm-mm.
He's got pardon powers still. He's going to be pardoning a lot of people in the last few days of his administration. How many of those are going to be black people? How many people that was unfairly and unjustly sentenced to disproportionate prison sentences is he going to have his Justice Department review so that he can pardon more African Americans?
Zero.
In his post-presidency, will he be, because don't play with me about this, y'all black dudes out here talk about this Trump this and Trump that. Listen, not a word about black people since November 3rd.
And intelligence of our brothers and sisters who are incarcerated to make sure they have a better chance to keep and make sure that they can unleash their potential. But I say to Sister Candace that I like her independence of mind. I think she's wrong most of the time. I fight for her right to be wrong in that regard.
Yeah.
I'll fight for your right to be wrong too, Mr. West.
Absolutely, but I would have wished that you would have moved further to the left, because when you have a Black Lives Movement under a black president, it's not going to be a matter of then moving to the
Mr.
right
West,
where they have been using.
Socialism has already been tried in our community. It's been tried via welfare policies, and it has completely crippled the black community. It has completely crippled the black family via the welfare policies. You know that. So I had to creep all.
She don't want him to talk right now.
Socialism is power sharing. Socialism is not.
This is a fact.
Look, how many seconds is left for this interview? A few more seconds left on this interview. Maybe 20 seconds. The whole time she gonna be interrupting this dude. Somebody gonna be interrupting this dude because they're not about to let him get on no winning streak.
Giving
Black
and becoming
liberals go
people
conservative.
dependent
Black
on
conservatives
programs
never
is
go
power
liberal.
sharing.
Mr. West, I appreciate your time, but you know black liberals go conservative, but black conservatives never go liberal, and there's a reason for that.
And
You're on the side of
I would just add that Wall
I don't
Street.
know. Black people are complicated. Black people are complicated. We
We're
go
not
back
that
and forth, but I wish we had more black leftists.
All right, guys, we got to go. This is a fascinating conversation. We have to have you both back. Thank you very much.
Bye,
both of
sir.
you.
You disrespect this man, then you have the nerve to say bye, sir, at the end. Listen, after you call Maxine Waters low IQ, if she took an IQ test, I'm sure you would discover that her IQ is very low. That's a lot of conjecture on your part. That's a lot of disrespect to somebody that was out here doing it, fighting the fight before your parents even met each other. When you was fucking around putting barrettes in your head and watching fucking Sister on TV, Maxine Waters was in the trenches, holding it down, exposing the CIA for bringing crack into Los Angeles. Fuck is you talking about? So when they don't come to my channel telling me, you got to listen to Candace Owens. Send me more Candace Owens clips, or better yet, you come debate me. If you like what I just did, subscribe to the channel. This was like me getting to re-understand how to use certain shit and bring y'all more content that focuses on what my initial reaction is to what we're seeing on the screen. Other than that, I'm Mike Powers. I'm out.